At the clandestine Lima Site 85, 2 American soldiers flying a Bell UH-1 helicopter during the Vietnam War suddenly found themselves under attack from enemy biplanes. Rather than fleeing for cover, the UH-1 decided to daringly pursue one of 4 North Vietnamese Antonov AN-2s. Unleashing their AK-47 on the AN-2, the Americans managed to bring down the plane. Ground fire aided in taking out one more. This bizarre encounter marked the only instance in the entire war when a helicopter recorded an airplane kill. As another helicopter pilot described it upon witnessing the unusual scene, quote, "It looked like World War I." The surviving Antonovs scrambled back to Gia Lam, and the secret remote American radar outpost continued with its operations. Lima Site 85. To carry out Operation Rolling Thunder, the United States needed a radar site to assist bombers. The severe weather conditions made their upcoming task incredibly daunting. In 1966, the U.S. Air Force and the Central Intelligence Agency chose a remote mountain in neutral Royal Kingdom of Laos, close to the Laos-North Vietnam border, to serve as the location of the site. Access to the mountain was limited, making it easy to defend in case of an attack. It was named Lima Site 85, the L in Lima standing for Laos. Fighter and bomber crews knew it as Channel 97, in reference to its radar frequency. The site was protected by the CIA, the USAF, and the multinational Hmong Secret Army. The installation of Lima Site 85 began in August 1966 with the integration of a TACAN radar and a command post. Before then, the site had served as a small post for the CIA and as a local strategic area. The following year, a command guidance radar was added to assist the bombing of northernmost areas in North Vietnam. In his article, The War in Laos, The Fall of Lima Site 85, James C. Linder describes the additional installation of a short takeoff and landing airstrip, also used for refueling rescue helicopters. The radar site was primarily run by day and night shifts of 5 people each, with operations commencing in November of 1967. The post was in use until the Battle of Lima Site 85, which marked the end of the operation. Most U.S. technicians stationed at the mountaintop were never seen again. Chief Master Sergeant Richard Etchberger was lost in the fight and was posthumously awarded the Air Force Cross. However, the site was such a big state secret that the honor bestowed on him was kept secret from the public until 1998. Etchberger was also awarded the Medal of Honor in 2010 after the whole project was declassified. Antonov AN-2. The Antonov AN-2 planes North Vietnam was using were designed in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Ministry of Forestry published a requirement for a replacement of the agricultural and utility Polikarpov PO-2 wooden aircraft in 1947. In response to the demand, Antonov created a single-bay biplane with a metal frame and a closed cockpit with cabin space for 12 people. The manufacturing of the plane began in 1946. It was meant as a utility plane dedicated to forestry and agriculture. Despite initial civilian use, it was later used for a variety of activities. The adaptability of the modifiable airframe made it ideal for the development of multiple variants. Some Antonov planes were made for atmospheric sampling, for flying medical support, and even for combat as light-armed attack aircraft carrying troops. The aircraft first appeared in an armed conflict in the early 1950s during the Korean War. It was swiftly integrated into the air forces of the Soviet Union and its eastern satellite states. One of the most noteworthy users of the AN-2 was the VPAF, the Vietnam People's Air Force. They used it as an attack aircraft. The North Vietnamese cherished it for its exceptional qualities. It had excellent lifting ability from poor runways and was incredibly durable. The last produced AN-2 aircraft was finished in 2001, and the plane remains in service around the world for both military and civilian uses. North Korea still reportedly maintains a number of the aircraft for Special Forces operations. Because the AN-2 is so slow, it often does not show up on some radar systems, and it could potentially be used to drop paratroopers over the border for sabotage missions. Bell UH-1 Iroquois helicopter. The helicopter on the American side was the Bell UH-1 Iroquois, known to many as Huey. The nickname came from the initial designation HU-1. The utility chopper is powered by a turboshaft engine. It uses 2-bladed rotors over the body and on the tail. The chopper was developed as a response by Bell Helicopter to a requirement published by the U.S. Army in 1952. They wanted a medical evacuation and utility rotorcraft. Its maiden flight took place in 1956. It was the very first turbine-engine helicopter developed for the U.S. military. Production has since surpassed 16,000 choppers. The UH-1 has been present in several American conflicts since its introduction. It was first involved in the Vietnam War. About 7,000 of these were deployed for that effort. The helicopter was sent to operational service at first as part of a medical detachment in 1962. It has since risen up in the public's consciousness as a symbol of the U.S.'s presence in Southeast Asia. Soon after its introduction as a medical helicopter in Vietnam, its role expanded to include general support, cargo transport, evacuation, search and rescue, and even air assault missions. The rotorcraft saw multiple upgrades and model changes throughout the conflict. The helicopters were armed with rocket launchers, grenades, or machine guns when they were intended for ground attacks or as armed escorts. Many of the modifications were done on the ground by Army members. These modified helicopters were distinguished by their armament. Rocket-bearing UH-1s became frogs or hogs. In contrast, gun-bearing UH-1s became cobras or guns. The North Vietnamese Plan. By 1968, the United States was fully implementing Operation Rolling Thunder, the bombing of military targets in North Vietnam. The raids were profoundly affecting the Viet Cong, and our army decided they needed to strike back. After considering multiple possible targets, the North Vietnamese chose to target the secretive radar station Lima Site 85. They reasoned that the U.S. would never imagine that they would dare attack it. The remote station was placed at the top of a 5,800-foot-tall mountain in the depths of the jungle. The cliff sides and thick greenery made it inaccessible unless one walked single file through a winding path or flew on an aircraft. The station was ideal for the American war effort because it was only 125 nautical miles away from Hanoi. The fact that the station was so tricky to access kept Americans safe while conducting their wartime operations. A ground assault against the site would be practically impossible. Instead, they decided to send 4 Antonov AN-2 biplanes, armed with 12-shot 57mm rocket pods and 150mm mortars with aerial bomb fuses. They could drop bombs from the plane and cause extensive damage. The incident. The Battle of the Helicopter and the Biplane took place on January 12, 1968, at Lima Site 85. That day, 4 North Vietnamese Antonov AN-2 biplanes took off from a northeastern Vietnamese airfield to attack and destroy the Laos mountain site. Their main target was the radar building atop the Po Pa Ti mountain. It was guarded by Air Force volunteers at the time, pretending to be Lockheed employees for logistical reasons. The aerial support, technicians, and security forces for the site were provided by Air America, a CIA company. The site had only been fully operational for a couple of months. Their flight was relatively quick, since Lima Site 85 was only 125 miles from Hanoi. The biplanes were ready for an attack at noon, with 2 launching bombs as the other 2 circled the area. The first biplane mistakenly attacked the incorrect building, believing it to be the radar site. Instead, staff members and associates were inside. Immediately, a Thai mercenary stepped out to return the aircraft's fire. Using one clip of an AK-47, the mercenary shot the plane to the ground. This incident terrified the other 3 pilots, and they began their retreat. Just as this was happening, a Bell UH-1 helicopter was flying in with Captain Ted Moore piloting and Glenn Woods assisting him. They were transporting military supplies to Lima Site 85, but witnessed the unfolding attack. Captain Ted Moore would later recall that they walked into what looked like, quote, something out of World War I. Moore chose to pursue the second attacking biplane as it changed its direction back towards Vietnam. They knew their helicopter was faster than the biplane and that they could engage it. Woods loaded an AK-47, and as they caught up with the unwieldy, slow aircraft, he popped out within striking distance of the Antonov plane. Due to the limited visibility towards the back from the AN-2, the pilot did not see the approaching helicopter in time. Before even shooting, the airplane's upper wing stalled out due to the downward push of air by the UH-1. The Antonov AN-2 slowed down to fight against the loss of altitude that ensued. Moore positioned the rotorcraft exactly over the biplane, and Glenn Woods began firing with the rifle. His effective attack sent the North Vietnamese plane into a spiral. It crashed into the trees underneath on a mountainside. The fight had lasted 20 minutes. The 3rd and 4th biplanes escaped into the safety of North Vietnam. A couple of hours later, CIA ground teams investigated both crash sites and confirmed that AK-47 bullets had downed them. Moore and Woods would register a unique aerial victory that would go down in history as the only time during the war that a helicopter crew took down an airplane. Unfortunately, the taste of victory was not long-lasting. 2 months after the encounter, North Vietnam sent a more comprehensive team to take over Lima Site 85. Nearly 3,000 soldiers and artillery combined to overwhelm the 19 Air Force personnel operating the position. Once it was confirmed that the site had fallen into enemy hands, US A-1 fighter bombers were sent to obliterate the area. The battle marked the most significant loss of United States Air Force members in ground combat during the Vietnam War.